The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
Do you remember that a couple of weeks ago there was a guy called Johannes from Finland?
Yes.
And he was talking about the changing your hobby into a profession and losing the passion for it. Was that the basic strand of it, wasn't it?
Yep.
And we talked about, and I surprised you, I think, a little bit, because I don't think you were expecting me to say I'm doing some dog portraits. And I was kind of inspired by Mandy Burton, who was talking about her project. Although not entirely, because for a while I've been thinking about doing this, but Mandy really sort of gave me a bit of a kick up the backside. So thank you, Mandy. When she did her project, where she would walk along towpaths and photograph, and then sort of a mini interview for a second with dog owners, complete strangers,
strangers and their dogs.
And you said to me, what are you using to photograph the dogs? I mean, not obviously the camera, but this is the backdrop. So it's just a simple grey backdrop, which I cut in. It's a very small one. It's cut to the length of probably the width rather of a big shaggy dog.
Are you good with scissors as well as everything else?
No, my mother-in-law did that.
Fair enough.
And and it's all done available light, because I met a Staffordshire Bull Terrier. I photographed the other day, and the Staffy with a bit of an attitude, obviously. Well, not obviously, not all Staffies do, but this one did. And I thought, blimey, if I was using a flash or any form of light here, the dog would be thinking, what's going on here?
Yeah, horses, they're the worst ones.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Jan Arnes Bertrand does amazing pictures of horses and
Is he the guy
cattle
that did the Equus
the French
book?
guy?
The book Equus.
Was that Equus? Pictures from...
No, is that...
no, I'm not sure.
Flesh.
Pictures from the sky or pictures from the air.
Let's not pretend we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, I've got his book, but obviously...
Equus is an amazing book.
I don't obviously know him that well.
The FujiCast.
But I just thought I'd show you that. Then there's that's my dog background.
Yeah, so where are the dogs coming from then? Just people you know?
Yeah. And I have a little cute little marketing idea, actually, which goes right back to the very start of my photographic career, 16, 17, whatever years ago, where I went and dropped leaflets and things through thousands of doors. I am pounding the streets for this little project.
You could train a dog to do it for you.
I could take a dog with me, would make more sense, wouldn't it? That would make so much more sense.
I remember when I'm
missing a trick.
I remember when I got the GFX 50S, the first thing I did was take a couple of pictures of some dogs. Yeah, you did,
of your whippet, didn't you?
And a French Bulldog as well, French Bulldog.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful dogs.
Yeah.
So, welcome to the show, episode 33 this week. Thank you to our friend. 33, I know.
Wow, my age.
Thank you to our friends at Simpler Straps for letting us give away a Simpler camera strap each to our favourite email questions of the week. They're coming up. If you'd like to go and see what Simpler's all about, go to simpler, simplr.us. Miss off the E, simplr.us. Also, there's your questions about anything Fujifilm or photography related, technical, artistic, business, personal, and send those questions in to click at fujicast.co.uk. Also, today you get to meet the moderators. It's almost alliteration, isn't it?
Meet the moderators.
Meet the mods. So for those that belong to our Facebook group, of which is growing nicely still, thank you very much, and it's great it's a very safe arena in there, I think, for people to discuss photography.
Yeah.
And
we all hate those Facebook groups that get angry people in them.
Yeah, sometimes Facebook can get very angry.
Yeah. And
we've had a few moments where there's been a few lockings of antlers and a few things that have sort of which have been removed before they've caused trouble, and that's what moderators and admins do. That doesn't mean people don't get a chance to sometimes get heated on a topic, but I thought it might be a good idea if you met Peter and you met Steve, who are mods in that group.
Rockers are allowed to.
Yeah, I knew you'd say that. Rockers are allowed to. So that's going to be our interview today. Right, let's launch into these questions. Do you want to go first, Kev, or me?
You go first.
Dave Brown. Hello, Kevin. Hello, Neil. Question for you both. What are your thoughts on third-party use of now, this could be any images, by the way.
Yeah.
But we're going to go wedding. I know we often get accused of being wedding-centric. I guess because we shoot mainly weddings, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But you could extend this question to other arenas. Third-party use of your wedding images by other contributors to the wedding day. Car companies, florists, bands, acts, flying owls, bearing rings. God, I have some stories about those. I would assume it's okay for social use, Facebook, Instagram, and the like, provided a link or backlink is used. But what if they started to use your images on a more commercial basis to advertise on their websites after, saying, obtaining images from the wedding couple? Would you invoice the company or ask them to remove an image? So I'm assuming here, if they've bypassed me and gone to the couple, is that what?
I think
that's
so.
what Dave means.
Yeah.
Would you invoice the company or ask them to remove the image? Great show, nice audio. Well, thank you. Bet you say that to all the girls.
I never say thank you when people say nice audio. I always say, that's Neil.
And refreshing that all are welcome, not just Fujifilm. I'm a Pentax user. You're very welcome. Dave Brown Photography.
I used to love those old Pentax cameras.
Yeah. So, now this is quite a spiky subject, because I know that you've had images stolen from you.
Mm-hmm. I sued a company. Yeah. They were a very well-known bridal directory. Stole some images or took some images and used them on their website. I went after them.
Is steal too strong a word, do you think?
No, I think steal is the right word.
Is it?
Yeah. And their argument was that because they were available in public, in the pub, i.e. on my website, that they are freely available. My counter argument to them was, well, when you hang your underpants on the washing line in public, it doesn't mean somebody can just come and take them. You
didn't use that?
I did. I used that. I thought I'd try and break the ice with that. It didn't work. So we went to small claims, and it was a Hooplinks first thing. So the day before we went to small claims, they exceeded whatever the word is, and I won. So it's the only time I've ever done it, and it's only because they were a big company. Now I get asked often, and I'm sure you do, and I'm sure probably Dave does, and various other people, from florists and caterers especially. Can we? I had it on just last week. It was a really lovely venue, and the florist said, we've never decorated here. Would you be able to send us some pictures? And I always say, yeah, of course, absolutely. However, what I never do is send them those pictures unless they come and ask me again afterwards, because I don't want to be responsible for taking business cards off them and then when I'm editing thinking, I must send some nice pictures to the florist. If the florist emails me subsequently, and that's what I always say to them, email me in 3 or 4 weeks when the edit's done and I'll send you some pictures, then that's absolutely fine. But I'm not responsible for doing it for them.
So you never charge for them?
No, not for things like that. However, I think that the crux of the question is that what happens if they take an image and start using it more commercially?
What happens if they go over your shoulders, over your head, over your backside, whatever, and ask the couple, or in other genres, ask a third party to use your images?
Well, this is where the contract comes in, doesn't it?
Subject, if they can be used.
Yeah. So my contract clearly states that images cannot be, and this is the contract with the client, images cannot be used for any commercial purpose or entered into competitions. So they would be in the wrong. Simple as that. It's never happened. I have to say, I've never, at least as far as I'm aware, it's never happened that a vendor has used the images for more kind of structured purposes. Many times the vendor has gone direct to the client and said, can we have some pictures? And the client's sometimes gone, yeah. Sometimes said, well, no, you need to speak to Kevin. Either way, I don't care. Frankly, you know what? If it's pictures of flowers and buildings and stuff, and as long as, especially on Instagram these days, as long as they say photo by @Kevin Mullins Photography, that's cool by me. We all, if we all helped each other, the world would be a lot better place instead of being. I
totally agree. I remember going
angry
on a very, very early workshop, and the person taking the workshop saying, never give your images away, these have an inherent value, and I agree they do have a value, but I think we live in a slightly pictorially...
Does a picture of a teacup have some value? Doesn't really.
Maybe it
no,
I don't know,
it doesn't. It has value to the people selling the teacups, so why not let them enjoy that value?
True.
know.
I'm same as you though. I ask them to contact me after 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah. Because
otherwise, just taking business cards away and you think, wow, what wedding was that from?
No.
Or what event was that from? The only thing that does bug me sometimes is when they come back and say, do you have any more of X? No, you've got what you've got.
Yeah, I have a special finger to delete those emails.
Stop it, Oliver Twist. Go away.
Please, sir, may I have some more?
So your question then.
Okay, so my question is from David Park, and the message title is Some Self-Indulgence Congratulations for You, then a question.
Right.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, we mentioned Mandy Burton, so enjoyed your early morning podcast. Early morning?
I'm going to have to read it out now, aren't I? Because instead of doing yada yada, because I mentioned it. Enjoyed your early morning podcast 24, especially the delightful, motivating, yet so self-depreciating Mandy Burton. Great. Mandy's becoming a bit of a
star. Mandy star.
Sorry, I dropped my lens cap then. Yeah, Mandy's becoming a little bit of a celeb. Well done. Great interview. More project-orientated ones, please. Okay, have you written that down? Write that down.
Yeah.
Write that down. Written it down.
I've written it down. Great interview. More project-orientated ones.
It's rubbish coming from Wales.
Did you see? There is a question, by the way, that is in Welsh. I will find that for you because you can read that one because you can obviously speak Welsh.
Yeah, absolutely. I can read it as long as it involves rugby songs. Okay,
we shouldn't read those.
So
ones.
he's in Australia. It's Sunday the evening, the 4th of August. Enjoying a beer, not Foster's. With my X100F, which JPEG settings can I configure to reproduce the moody, sometimes almost fuzzy, black and white photographs of Louis Stettner, who lived in New York and Paris. He died 3 years ago, aged in his mid-80s. I just love his work.
Louis Stettner, I think, a few weeks ago.
We did, yeah.
A couple of months ago, maybe.
Well, I'm going to click on that link he's given us. But just before I do that, he says at the bottom, Kevin, is it your Padilla setting? Perhaps tweaked. I have had great fun with your 7 JPEG settings, by the way. I also shoot RAW and JPEG.
Oh, is one of your settings that you sell a Padilla setting?
I don't sell any settings, but I did a blog post.
I thought you did. Do you not sell presets?
No. I did a F16.
Should we do some presets? FujiCast presets?
Yeah. We can call one smiley and one...
No, I'm serious about
noisy.
this. And you're not taking me seriously. Forget that idea. Scrap that.
No, I did a blog post and a YouTube video where I explained my 7 custom JPEG settings.
Yes.
And I named my custom JPEG settings after photographers whose finish I'm trying to emulate. Not their work, but the finish. And one of them was Darcy Padilla. And I loved her grainy black and white. And in fairness, the amount of feedback I've had from that, had I sold them for a penny a piece, I probably would be
£5.43 better off.
Yeah, exactly. However, I didn't, and I'm not. So, looking at the Louis Stettner photographs now, what I'm doing is trying to look at an image and try and understand the structure of it and how you might replicate something similar in the JPEG configuration of a camera. Now, the thing to remember with the JPEGs, Fujifilm JPEGs, is they are customizable to a certain extent, but not overly. So if you want something specific, then you may end up needing to shoot RAW and build a preset or something yourself that way. So the image I'm looking at now is a black and white image of a lady in a car. Really incredible picture, actually. So in the background of the car, outside the car, is a
couple canoodling
with a moped, and looks totally candid, which I'm guessing it is. In which case it's incredible. The lady has got really nice natural light falling onto her face. She's breaking all the rules of composition by staring out of the frame rather than into it.
Yeah,
but it works perfectly well because of the other stuff going on in the background. And that's ace. I love that. What I would do for this, I would have the shadows pumped up to maybe 2 or 3. I would have the grain. Did he say XT3? Was it XT3? Hang on a sec.
X100F.
Okay, X100F, you don't have the grain option in X100F, so you want to be adding a little bit of noise later on to that. Sharpness, I would bring that down. You want to be using Acros with a yellow filter, I'd say, for that, because the yellow filter is a little less harsh than the red filter in terms of contrast. Yeah, that's how I would try and emulate something like that. But again, you probably won't get it exactly right.
Should do a Stettner preset then.
This is ace stuff, isn't it? I'm not sure.
I don't like the way, by the way, that Google has changed of late. When you look at images, now you get a small sort of preview on the right hand side instead of it turning into a big preview. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think it's
changed.
Is that just your Macintosh?
No,
I'm sure that doesn't happen
just
for me.
Recently changed.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we all hate Google anyway, don't we?
No, I love Google.
Yeah. Okay. No, these are great pictures. Although a lot of them are different tints and tones and stuff. So
it's funny enough. The Stettner look is not what I would call. It's not cohesive all the way through, is it?
No, but then it does depend on where the images are being hosted and stuff like that. And. Yeah. Interesting, and this is a pretty interesting thing, and affects us all really. If the image has gone through a processing system, or it's been the art director of the website that's hosting it is using a differently calibrated screen or whatever, they may edit it to make it, and so they do often look slightly different. So yeah, that's what I would do for that one. Good question.
Consistency is the word I was looking for, not cohesive. I knew what I meant. Peter Johnson, quick question. Hi, Kev. Hi, Neil. Just a quickie. Don't know if you discussed this before. Do you think it's the duty of brides and grooms to provide food for the photographer on the day? Is it responsibility of the venue, or should it be? Do venues ask the bride and groom this question as part of their process, or should they? All I would say on this, since it's a quickie question, and we mentioned him already in this episode, I hate feeling like Oliver Twist when I have to go to the kitchen and say, "Please, sir, can I have some food or more or any?" And it's sometimes a bit worrying when somebody will say to you, "Oh, we'll see what we can do, rustle up something." You think, never mind rustling something up, it's in the contract. Don't make me feel like I'm some sort of like you're going to get your scrapings off the floor. Thank you very much. So I am happy to take my own, but if somebody is catering, that's nice as well. But I don't think it's the venue's responsibility, no, because they couldn't give a monkey's who's photographing.
And also it's a cost for them. So, the venue will, a half-decent venue will have a discussion with the bride and groom and, do you want to pay for the meal for the vendors?
Right, next question. Friend of the show coming up. Look.
Friend of yours, maybe.
I like him. He's all right.
Lee Glasgow.
Well, I wouldn't share a hot tub with him.
No. So he's got a really good question, actually. Hi, guys. I love following Neil, and I simply love Kevin's voice.
Always the wrong way around. Look at that.
So actually, this question is from Glasgow Lee. My question is this: how do you manage all the parts of communication with clients? Do you have any spreadsheets with all the customers and elements on, such as inquiry, chasing deposits, pre-weddings meetings, chasing balance, editing, album design, blogging the wedding, backing up the wedding?
Didn't realise there was that much work in what we did.
I use Lightblue. That's wonderful and keeps me sane, but I feel a spreadsheet or printed project list would be visually useful to see where I am and with which client. Also, I am off to the south of France for a week, or should I come to Brighton with you guys?
Well, that was last week.
That was last week. So,
but too late.
He came. I saw him.
I know.
He was there.
In a hot tub.
Glasgow Lee, we saw you in Brighton, so well done for choosing Brighton over the south of France for us.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you use for business management?
I am very... I don't want to say old-fashioned, because it works. It's worked so well for me for many years, but I'm a spreadsheet user. And funnily enough, as Lee points out there, is it good sometimes to see everything you're doing laid out? And I do have columns, blogged, and then I have one for the year after every single... I don't do it with every single client. I take this according to... There's a little note on whether I think they'll be conducive to the idea or not. But I send an anniversary mail as well. So the anniversary mail is usually done 2 to 3 months before their 1 year anniversary, and if they haven't bought an album, then that's when it offers them an album, because that's paper and it's a paper anniversary, or a print, because not everybody wants to spend X amount of money on a expensive album. They might just want to do a print. So yeah, in fact,
does that work?
Yeah, it does. Sorry, that latter thing.
Yeah.
My spreadsheet works.
Right.
I don't sell an awful lot of anniversary stuff now, but it's it's there. And funnily enough, since we were talking about doggy portraits, I will now add them to the list of do you have one, or do any of your friends, and point them towards the particular website that I'm building for that.
Cool. Yeah.
So for me, it works really well. I've never used Lightblue. I tried to once get to grips with it, and I didn't. Sorry.
Yeah, and I have used Lightblue, and not because it's a bad piece of software or anything like that at all. I know a lot of people use it and use it very well. Just it was a little bit overkill for what I needed.
Depends how many. I mean, if you're doing 100, 150 weddings a year or something, goodness knows how you'll be able to. But then it would make more sense than doing. If this spreadsheet's based on 25 to 40 gigs a year.
I think what I really liked about Lightblue, and it's subsequently, since I did test it, it's moved on a lot further, is the automation stuff in there. Yeah. So your email to your clients,
but that would
6 months later will be automated. Yeah. That element of stuff is great. However, what I did, being the geek that I am, and years ago, when I first started working, I worked for Microsoft, and I was the Access database support engineer. So I've got my own little Access database, which has absolutely everything I need in it.
So you've got an Access one?
I wrote it. It's all there.
Clever stuff.
I have everything in there. It even has really cool reports and stuff. So I can just press a button, have a printout, or see it on the screen of which clients have not requested their albums yet. Has a blog post been done for it? I even have parts in the query that say things like your average time from inquiry to book in 2011 was 3 weeks. Your average time in 2012 was 4.6 weeks, and blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I enjoy doing that, actually. I am a bit of a geek.
Right, one more question then. It's time to meet the mods. Monica Meska. Hi guys. First of all, awesome podcast. Please keep doing what you're doing and the way you're doing it. I'd like to ask you what to do when your client asks you to keep their photos private. I started my photography business last year, and I have so many clients asking for the photos to be kept entirely private. I don't know what to do with it because it hurts my marketing. You're right there, Monica, it does. And of course, the best photos are the ones that I'm asked to keep private. Well, that's Murphy's Law, isn't it? From my website and social media. Really frustrating, Monica says. How do you encourage your clients to let you share? Do you have some discount for the customers that agree for you to share their pictures on your website and social media? Do you have any extra fee for a private photo session? When do you talk to your clients about all that? Really appreciate any advice. Thank you, Monica. Very good question. And actually a question that works regardless of weddings or whatever, because this can work so well in portrait land as well. I know personally myself, the contract goes out for wedding work, and it already has in there a paragraph about me being allowed to use the images on my websites and also within third parties that I deem responsible enough to use their images. Now, that's kind of very presumptive paragraph to send out. But I think sometimes when you set your stall out, people are more likely to say, oh, right, okay. Rather than if you, and I'm not suggesting you do this, Monica, but if you almost go cap in hand to them asking to use them, then I think it becomes a far harder process altogether.
Yeah.
So by being a bit presumptive up front, it might feel a bit uncomfortable doing that, but actually it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And you know what? We're selling pictures. We need to show them. And I think you just hit the nail on the head. A lot of people are concerned, especially with like all of the recent GDPR and privacy and all that kind of stuff. Occasionally, and it's very occasionally, I will get somebody that says, actually, we're not comfortable with that. I did a wedding a couple of years ago for quite a well-known actor. Well, it was his daughter, actually, but and they don't want any pictures shown, and that's fine. You know, even though I love those pictures and I think they're some of the best I've shot, I can't use them. But that's what you've got to get paid, and that's the way it is. But if everybody said that, then no. So don't ask, let them ask, and then just explain politely. You know, how did you find me? Well, we saw these lovely pictures on your website. There you go. And
don't be afraid of going back to ask, because I have had some clients who have said, we'd rather you didn't use them. And then I've recontacted them and said, I really like these, any chance? And they've said, oh, go on then.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that lovely story about the wedding videographer who got called from Felix, a guy called Felix, who said, would you come and shoot my wedding? And the videographer apparently, purportedly, had not actually heard of, or didn't know who this Felix was. And he said, yeah, I'll shoot your wedding. And out went the contract. Very similar to ours. It had a clause in there about using stuff in his particular case, of course, being a videographer, he wanted to use it on YouTube. And the guy wrote back and said, well, I'm a bit sorry. We'd love to use you, but we can't have the video being used on YouTube because we're we're private. We're private people. We don't want it. He said, fine, that's okay. And then found out either on the day of the wedding, which I like the idea of this story being on the day of the wedding, but whenever it was, subsequently found out that the reason Felix didn't want those pictures being used is he and his new wife Marcy are YouTube stars, and Felix is PewDiePie. Has he got 100 million subscribers?
He's the most followed person on Instagram, isn't he? On YouTube, I think.
On YouTube,
PewDiePie.
But then he did actually share it himself.
Yeah, which is probably even better.
And that wedding video went proper viral. Biggest wedding video. I mean, the last time I looked at the figures, I think there were 27 million views.
Yeah, probably the most watched wedding video of all time. It is the
most watched wedding video of all time, probably, isn't it? Or maybe not if you compare it to the royal wedding or something, but certainly as a YouTube video.
Was he a British videographer?
I think he was, yeah.
I think that's a lovely story. I don't know who it was. I wouldn't have known who Felix was. I wouldn't even have known who PewDiePie was until you pointed it out to me. But I think it's a lovely story that he's fallen on his feet, and without any kind of I don't know. It's a very humble story, isn't it? It's
and apparently he's one of the nicest videographers. I mean, they're all lovely, obviously, of course they are. But this guy's one of the nicest guys out there. And so the videographer that told me this story, there was none of this, I wish I'd got that gig. He was so chuffed for him.
Yeah, good.
So pleased for him.
Good. Go Videogs.
Go videogs.
Go videogs.
Yeah. There was another part of the question that Monica asked, though, that I thought was quite interesting. Do you have some discount for the customers that agree for you to share the pictures on the website and social media? Do you charge extra if they want to keep it private? I think that complicates issues. We're not dealing with superstars. We're dealing with normally normal members of the public. And I think if you start adding clauses in like that, people feel a bit uncomfortable.
I do know a couple of people who do that, who
Does
basically
it work?
say, one of them is somebody we know very well, a video guy, who essentially says that if you don't want me to use the pictures, you have to pay a premium.
Oh, right.
And I can kind of understand that. I have to say, I can kind of understand that, especially for video, where that particular videographer is probably only shooting 7 or 8 very high-end videos a year. So he knows they're going to be special. And the clients that he tends to attract will be very wealthy, often maybe well-known. So
we'll bleep this out, but is that...
Yeah, so he can't just basically not show anything.
No.
So that kind of makes sense. But from your average wedding photographer, actually Monica didn't say what she shoots. It could be family photography or anything. But
this could be anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because this counts for family as much as anything.
But for your average wedding photographer, I would feel very, very uncomfortable to say to somebody, if you don't want me to show your pictures, then you're going to have to pay me more.
Yeah.
Because I know what would happen.
Awkward.
They would just go somewhere else.
Yeah.
They go to you.
Yeah, and I'll take that gladly. Thank you very much. Monica, thank you very much for your question. And it's a good question, so we're going to send you a strap from Simpler Straps. Have I given one away this week? No,
nope.
I haven't.
That's yours, and I have to do one as well.
Okay, so Monica Mesca. That strap is all yours. Enjoy.
Isn't that a lovely name, Monica Mesca? It's got all of those.
Again, we're back to exotic names for photographers.
That just rolls off the tongue.
I wish I was called Monica.
Monica Mesca.
Right, let's move to this week's interview. A slight departure to the normal style of interview. And the last couple of weeks, last week, a slight departure, that's for sure. But we thought it'd be nice to officially meet the mods. For those that have been in the FujiCast Facebook group, you may well have heard from Peter or Steve. This week, we thought we'd give you a chance to actually, well, not just hear from them in text, if that's the right expression, but actually hear from them. So this is this week's interview with Peter and Steve. So Peter, Steve, thank you very much for joining us. I thought this would be a great idea to meet the moderators, because you're the ones, more often or not than myself or Kev, that seem to lock antlers with people. But so I'm going to start with a very general question, all right? And you can both answer it. Maybe Peter, you go first. Facebook, force for good or force for sometimes not so good?
Well, in my opinion, Facebook is force for sometimes not so good. Because you do see that people can be quite anonymous and then do tend to let themselves go a bit more than they would in real life, I guess.
It's that thing, isn't it? You'd never say the same to somebody face to face as you would in a Facebook group. And sometimes, you know, I see comments and I think, oh dear, that's a bit spiky. I'm not quite sure I'd have said it like that if we were face to face in Costa. Would you, Steve?
No, totally. I think the ability to be unknown on Facebook is both its real strength and its weakness, really. Some of the comments you see, particularly in the current political climate here in the UK, and let's not go there, but some of the comments that people are writing and then hiding behind anonymous names, it's quite scary. So I think Facebook is great as a way of building communities. You know, just look at the community that you and Kev have made here on the FujiCast, and Kevin has made on his ex-weddings group. But it can also be a source of real problems, you know, almost bullying, I think.
In terms of business, how do both of you use Facebook?
So I, or should I say we, because as you know, we're very much a partnership, Sam and I. We use it very much in terms of building our brands, sharing, obviously, images, networking in a few local wedding groups and communities that we know and trust. We have done a little bit of targeted Facebook marketing, which has worked quite well. But really, it's a case of building our brand, building our awareness, and also networking with people like you guys.
And yourself, Peter?
I must say I'm a bit of a social media marketing no-no. as in that I'm not that good at it. I use Facebook mostly to connect with other wedding photographers, and I try to post some interesting stuff on my Facebook page every now and then. That's just shots of weddings I did or gigs I did.
In that case, it's a good question for Steve, really, because I know that, and I listened to Andrew Helmich's really, really good podcast. And if you haven't listened to that one, there's some advice for you. And he talks a lot about Facebook marketing. Give us a general idea of how you approach Facebook marketing and why it's good and what you do.
So I'm glad you mentioned Andrew Helmich's group. We've been members of that Facebook and podcasts for quite a while now. And it's pretty much to the letter, really, the program that he's developed for Facebook lead generation. And I think that's how you'll have to look at it. It's lead generation. So what we've used in the past is to use a targeted Facebook ad campaign using the tools that Facebook can give you. You can really drill down into demographics of age, geography, interests. And we've built the ad about the offer of a free engagement shoot for a limited number of couples, of a targeted area. And I think we ran that. We haven't done it for 18 months, Neil, but we ran that the start of Christmas last year, start of the new year last year, just after Christmas. And I think we generated about 165 inquiries out of that.
Wow.
And from that, we booked, I think, 7 or 8 weddings.
There is this suggestion that the Facebook bride and groom aren't big spenders, but you'd kind of suggest that that's not true.
I don't think you can really make those kind of generalizations, really. That there are certainly communities and groups which I would think attract more the more economical weddings, shall we say. But the inquiries that we've took and the weddings we've booked certainly were, normal mid to high range weddings, which is where we sit in the marketplace.
Have you ever booked a wedding off Facebook, Peter, at all? I mean, you're saying that you don't really use social media in that guise, but have you?
I think I have in the sense that I do post pictures of weddings I took and tag people, and then their friends and family see that, and I may have gotten some referrals out of that. So I think I have, but not directly, as in people found me on Facebook and then booked something directly to me.
What about? I know this is a Facebook chat today, but I'm intrigued. I'm going to ask you both anyway. What about Instagram? How important is that in the mix for you both? Perhaps Peter first.
Same as Facebook, really. I have a personal profile and a business profile on Instagram. I use my personal profile every now and then, not too much. And then I used to have a business profile, which I used, quite regularly. I posted pictures quite regularly. And then one day I just got fed up with it all and deleted the whole thing. And then a couple of months ago, I reopened it, so to speak.
We shot our first wedding last week, where a couple had found us on Instagram and liked what we did and booked us on the back of Instagram. But I have to say that Instagram is a bit of a mystery to me, really. I think if you were in at the early days of Instagram and built your brand and build your awareness, I think you can do very well. It seems that the algorithms are changing constantly on Insta, and trying to keep ahead of that curve is probably impossible. So we try and post most days on our business Instagram page, and I don't think likes is the right thing to track, but we do get about 30 to 40 likes typically.
Let's talk about your photography businesses. peterkasbergen.nl. I'm intrigued, first of all. The first thing I see when I open up a website, that first image, usually for me, tells me everything about what I think this photographer is going to be. I want to know how you choose the images on your front page. Peter. Okay,
well, you've obviously opened the website and you see 3 images.
Yeah.
And I think they do represent what my business stands for quite well. The first one is a couple dancing off into the sunset, a wedding couple.
That's right.
Which is, I don't see myself as a purely 100% documentary wedding photographer. I do like the documentary approach, but I also do like the post shots and the contrived shots, so to say. So this is sort of a mix of both, because I didn't ask the couple to to start dancing, but I did put them there in the sunset. So it's kind of a mix of things, and I think that's what I do in my wedding photography.
And in terms of your background, just tell us a little bit more about you.
Okay, well, I come from an IT background, really. I was an IT consultant for about 10 years. Actually, my photography started when I used to dance competitions in ballroom dancing. And when I was planning to get married, I didn't have time for that anymore, but I didn't want to lose all the friends I had there. So I started taking pictures at dance competitions.
All right.
And enjoyed that so much that I got my first digital SLR as a wedding gift, actually. And things just snowballed from there, really. I always say I'm a people photographer. So I do portraits, I do weddings, I do business events, business portraits. If you put me in front of a great landscape and I take a picture and I get home and then I look at the picture and I'm like, nah, I don't like it.
Yeah.
And then... But when I put somebody in the landscape, then I'm a happy guy.
Steve, I'm going to ask you the same sort of questions. I know when I go to your front page instantly, I know that venue, and I know that couple are walking out from a door that I walked out with my wife in 2006. That's Silchester House, isn't it?
It is indeed. Yeah.
So,
of course, we're not a million miles away from you,
No.
Neil. We're in North Oxfordshire, and I guess we did quite a few weddings to the south of Oxfordshire, so perhaps we overlap a little bit.
Yeah.
But we're very much. My wife and I, Samantha, we're very much a partnership, really. We only ever work together. We only ever photograph together. My background, I was a scientist originally. I got a chemistry degree many years ago, and I spent a couple of years working as a scientist, and then got bored, and then pursued a career in sales. And I spent most of my working adult life in sales and sales management, selling to scientists, who are probably the most difficult people in the world to sell to.
Yeah.
And then 27 years ago, in my first marriage, or practice marriage, as you and Kevin call it.
I'd just like to say, by the way, they made it sound like myself and Kevin are married to each other.
My first wife and I, we had a daughter, Natalie, and I'd been interested in photography. And then, of course, when you've got a baby to photograph, my interest exploded, and I got really into photography. I had my own darkroom and printed pictures, which is still the greatest experience, I think, in photography. And then when Samantha and I got together, which was just around 1999, 2000, Sam's very artistic. And I bought her a used camera for a bit of fun, really, and very quickly she went past me in terms of her composition skills and her ability to see a photo. And we, I think like most people, we had some friends who were getting married, and they said, "Hey guys, would you take our photos?" And we thought, okay, and we did it, and we really liked it, and it sort of grew and grew. And about 4 years ago, I was running multi-million-dollar businesses for a big American corporation, and to be honest, it was making me ill. The stress and pressure of it all. So I walked away from it, and for the last year and a half, we've both been making a living out of photography.
What about your individual Fujifilm journeys, though?
We came to Fuji entirely through Kevin. We shot weddings initially in the way that we wanted to shoot weddings, which was not doing a lot of pose photos, and just digging around online, I found this term documentary wedding photography, which I never realized we were. And once you find documentary wedding photography online, you very quickly end up in Kevin Mullins' website.
You do.
Coincidentally, I just bought an X Pro 1, and I bought it really for a travel camera for when I was traveling on business. And yes, it was a bit clunky, and yes, the focusing wasn't as fast as our Canon DSLRs. And yes, there were things I had to work around to start with, but the images we got out of it were great, and the whole experience of using the camera was just fun.
And Peter?
I think I followed the same path as many people, that the original X100 was my gateway drug. It all, again, snowballed from there. I bought an X Pro 1. I bought two XT1s, shot weddings with two XT1s. Progressively got more Fuji cameras. I got the X Pro 2, then an XT2, another XT2, an XH1, and loved using them. But I was having a bit of a struggle with the autofocus. So I switched to Sony actually about a year ago. I do miss my Fujis though, for just the fun and the Fuji colors. I still have an X70 and an X100F left, and I do try to use those as much as possible for my personal work.
And you know, I sort of asked you with a wry smile when we talked about Fuji, because I knew your journey, and that kind of answers some of the questions that we were talking about just before we started recording. Actually, Peter, about people saying it's just for Fuji. And I thought this will be interesting because people won't be expecting one of our moderators to actually be a Sony shooter, and it kind of it's a perfect dovetail. You couldn't have written this bit any better, Peter, because it dovetails perfectly to the chat I wanted to have about the Facebook group. Because the title of the show may be FujiCast, but actually we like to think that it's more a community of photographers who talk about, primarily I would imagine, about mirrorless. What's your take on the group? And as a Sony man now, although you know Fujifilm very well, I know that, but why did you pick up the podcast? And do you think it's important that it's called FujiCast, or does it not really matter to you?
First of all, it doesn't really matter to me what it's called. I mean, as you've pointed out during the show, and Kevin's pointed out as well, is that it's not about Fuji. Of course, you guys use Fuji cameras, but you talk from a point of view of a photographer, not a Fuji photographer. Both of you. I mean, like Steve said, when you start using Fuji equipment and have a sort of a documentary approach, you will definitely run into Kevin's website and YouTube channel. So that's how I sort of got to know him. I met him once or twice before I went to the X Weddings conference last year in Bath, and I was of course a member of the X Weddings Facebook group as well, and it's just the idea behind the Facebook group of the X Weddings group is basically the same as the FujiCast group. It's supposed to be a friendly environment where people can just discuss in a safe environment and ask questions and so on. And I think you've created the same thing, the two of you together with the FujiCast Facebook group and podcast. It's just a friendly environment to discuss photography. Obviously, we need to have some rules in the group to keep it from going wrong, but it's just the whole atmosphere, and I think it's in line with what people say about Fuji cameras. I mean, I always hear people talk about the fun of using the Fuji camera. Steve just mentioned it. It's the same thing. I'm using Sony now, but I always feel like I'm photographing with a computer, and I didn't have that feeling with the Fuji cameras. I had a Fuji camera, and now I have a Sony computer in my hand.
With regard to where the cast goes now, you're moderators, stroke administrators. Where would you both personally? I'm acutely aware I don't want this to seem too self-absorbed, but I'm going to ask you both the question: where would you like to see the FujiCast go to develop? What would you like to hear more of, or hear less of, even?
So from my side, I like the mix of questions and an interview. I think it's great that you mix the interviews up with some pretty well-known photographers up to now, and I know you've had some suggestions for others to use there, but it's nice also you get the likes of Peter and myself, mere mortals, on here as well. I think the interviews are important. If it was an hour of just Q&A, I think that would be perhaps a bit heavy.
Yeah.
So the interviews are important. I think it would be nice for you guys to go into some slightly different areas. Video is an area that I'm dabbling with, as you know.
Yeah.
And I think there are more and more people who are photographers who are sort of playing with video that would perhaps find that useful. But I think also it's important you keep the mix of working professionals and keen amateurs and people who just like taking photos.
What about you? What about you, Peter?
Like Steve said, I do like the mix. One thing you're bound to have in the beginning is that you are called the FujiCast, so you get a lot of Fuji-oriented questions from the audience. And so it tends to be a bit Fuji heavy, but even though it's not meant to be. And you're both wedding photographers, so you also have a slight bit of bias in that direction as to people asking questions about wedding photography. So it would be nice if we had a bit more other topics, maybe portrait photography in general, and techniques for that, but yeah, that would be what I would be looking for. But the mix of professionals, semi-professionals, amateurs is quite nice, and I think we should try to keep that. Yeah.
Peter, Steve, thank you very much for your time. If you do lock antlers in the group with either Peter or Steve, do go look at the raws. I mean, we are, hopefully going to just keep pushing forward with this. I think it's a friendly. I've been in a few spiky Facebook groups, and this doesn't seem like that to me. Yeah, sure, there'll always be some debate, and people shouldn't agree with each other all the time. Obviously, that'd be a pretty boring world. But I think you both do a great job, and from myself and Kev, I'd like to thank you both very much.
Cheers, Neil. Cheers, Peter.
Hopefully, then that's made you want to visit the Facebook group, the FujiCast Facebook group. It's growing nicely. Thank you very much for joining it and being part of it, and I think it's quite a friendly group as well.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
we both belong to groups that aren't so friendly.
Correct. And we should both we should thank Peter and Steve as well.
Yeah,
like publicly, right here, right now.
Well, we are. There we go.
Well done. Thank you.
You don't need money. You just got a Kev thanks.
Yeah.
And a fist bump.
Fist bump and a smile. What more could you want?
Right, questions.
Okay, so another Peter this time, Peter Johnson, right. And he says, "Hi Neil and Kevin. This question popped into my head the other week, and I just remembered it. When it's raining, do you feel like you should have umbrellas in the boot of your car for the bride and groom, matching white or clear umbrellas, for example? Right. Or do you just go with it and continue in a pure documentary style?"
Oh. Why are you looking at me like that?
Well, no, I don't have umbrellas. I don't. I just no. No.
I mean, it would be like brownie points, wouldn't it?
No.
You've got an umbrella?
No.
Do you carry surprising things with you like that?
No. It makes me chuckle when I hear photographers say they take knitting needles and things like that.
Well, do you know, I was just about to say, I keep a knitting needle in there for doing the dress. You know, when it's good if people can pull the dress together.
No, because... No, why? That's not your responsibility.
Yeah, I know, but it's maximum brownie points, isn't it?
Well, not if it breaks.
People remember that sort of... Well, no. I've never had one break.
People remember it, but they've already paid you. They're getting married that day. They don't care. No,
you miserable old
honestly,
tyke.
do not. I honestly, I'm not. I'm passionate about a couple of things.
That's not one of them.
That is not one of them. No, you are the wedding dressmaker, the hairdressers, the makeup artists, the planners, the vicars, everybody else are there to do their own job. Your job is to take pictures, not to run around with umbrellas and stuff like that. I mean, it's different. I mean, in fairness, if you're doing portraits or whatever and you need to keep them dry, then fair enough. But presumably, that's what that's for. Just no, don't.
I did used to carry black umbrellas, but I don't do that anymore.
And what was your thinking behind that?
I didn't want to get wet.
Yeah, okay, for you, fair enough.
No, I'm being a bit flippant.
No,
I just thought it was something that you could offer up as a...
I think this all comes down. I'm going to blame Damien Lovegrove for this. Bless him.
Why? What's he got to do with the umbrella situation?
He wrote
Umbrella Gate.
He wrote a big purple book once called Wedding Photography something or other.
Right.
And I bought it right at the beginning. And in fairness, it was an amazing book. Damien's an amazing bloke, amazing photographer, as we all know. I'm fairly sure somewhere in that book it says, you should take umbrellas and you should take knitting needles and you should take, spare socks for the groom and all sorts of stuff like that. He'll probably chuckle if it's not true, hopefully, or he might get very angry with me, one or the other. But it's one of those things that when I first started out thinking, do you really? What? No, surely not. God, it's hard enough to remember to take the cameras. Not all that stuff. No, it's just a big fat no from me. Sorry, I'm doing my Simon Cowell. It's a big fat no.
It's a big fat no from me.
Yeah.
Right, well...
But your mileage might vary, Peter. And, of course, feel free to take your white umbrella or your see-through umbrella and anybody else.
And enjoy it.
But not me.
Patrick Brian Gomez, question 1. Oh, he's straight in. Pat doesn't mess around. Straight in with a question. There's none of that, I love the show stuff going on. He's talking your language. I've been experimenting with custom film simulations. Is it possible to save your white balance custom settings? So he's talking about adding a little bit of extra red in blue, blue plus 2, red plus 2. What would I do? Just set the highlights, shadows, film simulation, and then manually manipulate the white balance setting before I shoot. If it's possible, how do you do it? Well, is it possible?
No.
Okay.
Basically, the custom film simulations, you can save shadows, highlights, color, noise, the basic stuff in the menus. You cannot save custom white balance.
Did ask another question here. In Max, I heard that. What's this?
Shall I read it for you?
Yeah.
I heard that X Acquire and X Studio can now be used in Macs. That's Macintoshes.
Yeah, I know that. I've got one.
But
we're on it.
I have been experiencing.
We're recording on it.
I've been experiencing problems, and it simply does not work.
Right.
I need help to get around that from any of you, please. Well, I don't use a Mac, as you know, so I don't know. It does. It should work. It works fine on my PC. I know people that do use X Acquire on Mac, so. The only thing, one of the things that does trip people up sometimes is they use the wrong USB-C cable predominantly.
Oh, is that what does it?
Because USB-C cables have two different power strengths. So if you don't use the one that comes in the camera,
it might not have the right
strength of power or something. You can always buy a new one, of course. But if you're buying a USB-C cable and
is it like a
resistor
capacitor kind of scenario?
I don't know, but it's something to do with some USB-C cables will work and some of them won't, and it's to do with the power consumption or something. So that might be what's causing the problem. Always try and keep the cable that came in your camera box and use that for your X Acquire, X Studio stuff.
Okay. Thank you very much. Right, yours.
Well done. So this is Mohammed Pirani from Toronto in Canada. We
a lot of Canadian listeners, actually.
Yeah.
I really like the idea of moving to Canada. Canadians seem just like really chillaxed.
Yeah, I think they are.
Yeah.
Well, look at Patrick.
Yeah.
Question about how to handle situations where people pose even when you don't want them to. And so he goes on to say, I like to take candid or documentary style photos at family events or even street photography, but most of the time I get people who smile and pose for the picture as soon as they see the camera up to my face. Or worse, they stop walking to get out of the way. Absolutely. How do you handle these kinds of situations, especially during your weddings? Although it's totally applicable for everything. At first I thought I would get a longer lens and shoot from a distance. But I rather enjoy being in the action and in close proximity. Not to mention getting more stuff in of the real photography.
Yeah, the context picture.
Yeah, absolutely. I did try and take them blindly without looking into the viewfinder or LCD, but the composition is off. Currently shooting an XT2, 18mm, 35mm, Olympus OM 50. I also have a Canon FD 100, Olympus 135. Wow, that's a lot of stuff.
It's a big bag.
Yeah, eagerly waiting for your answers.
Thank you, Mohammed.
Yeah, thank you, Mohammed. Well, I think you've kind of answered your own questions in that question. You answered your own questions in that question. Using a longer lens is not the answer for sure, because all that's going to do is introduce more people coming into the frame. Yes, they won't act like a blind rabbit when they see you, because they won't see you because you'll be too far away hiding behind a tree. So that's definitely not the right answer. That whole thing, when I talk to people about street photography and they say, the number one anxiety for them mostly is the fear that people are going to see them taking a picture of them and then they're going to punch them in the face.
Yeah.
And actually what I normally say to them is they will not be angry if you taking a picture of them. What they will be is wondering why you're taking a picture, and they must be in the way, so they move out of the way. So what you get is a lot of people doing that whole kind of rabbit stuck in the headlights, dodging back and forth, thinking, I must be in the way. And then they look over their shoulder looking at what you're trying to take a picture of, and actually it's them. So yes, that does happen.
Well, I like the approach that one of our guests, Ian McDonald, had a couple of weeks ago when he was saying, if somebody comes up and said, did you take my picture? You say, yeah, with a smile he says, yep, I did. Yeah, I really like you. I really like he has a totally different approach to it.
Absolutely.
And he's Canadian.
Why not? And I have never, ever, when I'm not shooting, not including weddings here, when I've been shooting street photography, and I've done a lot, been asked, have you just taken my picture? Not once. Not once. And I think that's part of the answer. It's to do with the way you carry yourself, to do with your own confidence, to do with the way you handle the camera, shooting blindly from the hip, etc. Mohammed talks about, he's trying to shoot without looking into the viewfinder of the LCD, but the composition is off. Well, that just comes down to practice and patience and timing. You can compose using the viewfinder, drop the camera down, and as long as it goes perpendicularly down and you don't start bobbing left and right, then it should be fine.
But also I think you can give off this air of nervousness.
You give off an air of nervousness.
I remember on a particular shadowing one of your street photography courses, which was excellent, by the way. There was a particular guy on it who had the camera at his midriff, and he obviously worked out composition and the focal length and where he should stand if he wanted to get X. But he looked like everything about him. Just looked a bit threatening.
Looked like a criminal. Yeah,
I wasn't going to go that far.
But the thing is, the critical thing is, and this is probably the number one thing that I think people fall down on when they come to do candid street photography of people, is that they get themselves sorted. It's all framed. They're shooting from the hip. They've got their zone focusing set up. It's f8. It's everything is good to go. And the only thing they need to do at that point is press the button at the right time. That's the only remaining thing, right? But what they do is they eyeball their subject. Yes. They stare at them.
Well, this is what that guy was doing.
Yes, exactly. They stare at them. And then the person's thinking, well, he's not taking a picture of me, but why the hell is he staring at me like that? That's the problem. Yeah. It's you've got I will be if I'm shooting with the X100, or X Pro 2 or something. I'll be, when I'm taking the picture, I'll normally be playing with my camera strap or looking at my watch or taking a toke on my vape, whatever. But I'm doing that. Absolute everything to not be staring at the subject, and that honestly, I think that's 90% of the battle.
I didn't realise you vaped.
Don't tell my mum.
Shh. What you could do is just a big outtake.
I don't do that.
And then you could, but then you could
disappear.
but then you'd have your camera behind the smoke as well. Interesting set of images.
It's a good question, Mohammed. So I am going to send you a simpler strap, Mohammed Pirani from Toronto in Canada.
On that note, by the way, since you mentioned weddings, sometimes looking past the composition works as well. Do you get what I mean by that?
Yes.
Sometimes people think that they're looking at you, and what I tend to do is I purposefully then look straight past them.
Yeah.
That kind of thing where they think, he's not looking at me.
Yeah, absolutely. Just don't.
Whereas I've focused on them, and they're my subject.
No.
But I make out I'm looking somewhere else. Fujifilm cameras are so easy to do that with because they're so small.
Well, yeah, absolutely. All mirrorless cameras are really, and the thing is, it does depend on your approach slightly. If you're doing a Bruce Gilden-esque approach, or Doogie Wallace, where it is in your face, take the picture and run, then you're not going to be able to hide. But if you're doing what I would consider street photography, then that shouldn't be an issue. And also always remember, when it comes to public photography, that as long as you believe what you're photographing something for public history posterity, you're not doing it for your own personal gratification or your own whatever. You're doing it because there's a moment in history that you think is interesting to take a picture of. You're not doing anything wrong. No. You're not doing anything wrong. That's the key thing. So don't feel that fear. Don't look like you're doing something wrong. It's as long as you're in an environment and a country where you're allowed to be doing it, as long as you're not doing something illegal and you're not taking pictures for the wrong reasons, then just get on with it.
And equally, don't be confrontational.
Absolutely, don't be confrontational.
There's a YouTube film of I can't remember the guy's name, but he sets out to be confrontational. Yeah. He wants confrontation. He wants people to say, "What have you just done?" and so that he can say, "Free world, I can do what I like."
Yeah,
you're not getting me. No, not listening. Fingers and ears. Blah 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 blah. That's confrontation.
And it's people like that will be the downfall of it. I've been on that horse too many times. So. Yeah. Mohammed, well done. Good question.
Thank you very much. Shenny Leon, what's up? I don't know. What is up? I'm really enjoying your podcast. It's fun, interesting. You guys are nice people too. Well,
thank you. Thanks a lot.
I sent a message last week, but now I have another question. That's all right. I was going through your websites. Every time I look at them, I end up totally inspired to go out and shoot. Well, that's nice. NeilJames.com, NEALE, KevinMullinsPhotography.co.uk. I see that Kevin says that in his shots, he does not try to intervene to create or recreate the photo or the situation that he's making into a photo. But what about if you see that there's a spot with some really amazing light, and if only you could get the bride or groom to continue what they're doing but stand in that spot with that nice light? Would you say something? Would you move them? Would you think about it? These questions are both of you. Also in regards to the family group shots, what do you guys do? Well, we've been down the family group shots quite a few times, but we'll just touch on that again. Take a few or many, or maybe just don't do any. I'm in my first year of wedding photography. Good luck for the adventure, Shenny. Good time, good fun. And I'm passionate about the documentary side of it, just wondering what you guys do. So thank you again. And Neil, great special sound effects that you add to the show. Some people hate them, by the way, Shenny, but I don't give a damn. I'm going to keep doing it because sometimes they're fun. But we did stop doing the email sound because that drove people absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, because they all thought they were receiving emails,
even if it wasn't the appropriate sound.
Yeah,
they thought, "Is that me? Oh, it must be me."
And there was the guy who was landing at Heathrow listening to the podcast when you put the warning on, and he threw his headphones off and fell into a sheer panic. Well, my answer is no. I wouldn't move them. No, I don't. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. Oh, right. It means that's just the way that I do it. Yeah. I'm pretty sure you're the same. I
wouldn't move people into light.
No. If it's not a portrait or something, that you're actually taking control of.
Yeah.
Then no, I don't.
Have you ever asked somebody to look up into the light if they're in the right place? Is it?
No.
Just look to your left a bit for a second. Never done that?
No.
Not once?
Not once.
I'll hold my hand up and say I have. And I did a couple of weeks ago.
Right, I'm going.
Sorry.
This is rubbish.
But I did a couple of weeks ago with a picture of the military guys were looking out the window, and I just thought, that's a cracking portrait. To hell with it, I've got to ask them. Yeah, and I did.
And you know what?
The rest of the day, though, they didn't want to hear from me.
That's absolutely fair enough. I just don't. It's not. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just my personal take on things. I'm probably a little bit more extreme than others. But no, I don't.
Does it damage your business?
Possibly. Yeah, I mean, possibly. I would imagine for a lot of people come to my website and like what they see, but also a lot of them probably think, well, I don't particularly like having my picture taken. I don't like what I look like when I'm laughing and stuff. So, I probably won't go there. And that's fine as well. But, the last thing, absolutely, and I'm absolutely not saying this is what you were doing, just that was a one-off thing, but the absolute last thing I want to do is call myself a storyteller, a natural storyteller, and then set it up.
It's funny, and I keep coming back to my old mate, my old mucker Giles, the conflict photographer, who does listen to this show. So hello, Giles. And he. During the time he's been documenting conflict, he has sometimes talked to people, and it has changed the whole situation. And then they look up, and then he finds himself recording a portrait rather than making a story, and it becomes part of his documentary. But
I think that's slightly different to saying to people, actually, can you move? Can you move over there? I remember once being at a wedding. Yeah,
if you just pick them up and wholesale put them in another place,
and then pretend that's how it was in real life.
Yeah.
And I'm, that's not documentary. It's not. It's just not.
Certainly not reportage.
I remember doing a wedding once where beautiful a rest park, amazing place, amazing bridal prep rooms.
Okay.
And the hairdresser had the bride in the bathroom, sat on the toilet with a mirror with those electric lights around it. Because she didn't want natural light. She wanted to control the light using her little mirrors and everything. And so that's where the bridal prep pictures were. Yeah. There's no way I'm going to start getting them to,
what would you have done if
replicating the makeup in outside once they've had their makeup done?
They're replicating
it outside.
Totally. Yeah, I could redo that again for you, just for the shots. No, do it for real. Do it for real. It's
exactly.
much more fun.
And again, I'm very conscious of not saying that's the only way you should do things, because I do know that
everybody
people do that.
Yeah.
But that is not a documentary.
What would you have done if the makeup artist would have said to you, "Please don't do it here. We'll replicate some shots in a second"?
No, I would have just said, "Well, this is part of the story. Yeah. I'll just take some shots."
What about when you? Let me just throw this one in again, because we all get it. because your clients might well understand the way that you shoot, completely conversant with it, and they know what you're doing and they like it. Well, what about that one bridesmaid or groomsman that says, can we do some fun shots now? Can we just lift the bride up? Can we do that? I've seen this done. I like to do that. What do you do at that point?
If you want to do that, you can do that and use your phone. Honestly, I just don't. I don't. No, don't get me wrong. It has happened, and you know, if they've done it, what I normally do is I'll stand back.
Yeah.
And what happens then when they're doing those silly fun things is that everybody crowds in with their iPhones.
Yes.
And I just stand back and take pictures.
Better picture.
Pictures of people taking pictures of it. But yeah, that's generally it. I had one a couple of weeks ago, in June sometime, and the bridesmaid was like, "Oh, you need to go up on the roof and take a big picture of everybody in a love heart." No, I'm not doing that.
Did you come out in hives?
No. I said to her, you can, if you want to do that, then feel free.
Fine, yeah.
She did. So she got everybody to stand in a heart. She went up on the roof with her iPhone.
Yeah.
I went into the heart and took pictures of everybody with their drinks and breaking it. So you couldn't see it was a heart, but I was in the mix, and it was great because you got some really nice kind of light fall on people's faces and everything.
Totally different angle.
Yeah, totally
You've got the unique angle. While we're about it, Shenny, with these sound effects, I wanted to point this out because we always feel a little bit nervous at this point when I hear that one. It's kind of like, is it turbulence? I was speaking to I know you know a real life British Airways pilot, but I was doing a film shoot recently, and the husband of one of the subjects was a real life British Airways pilot, and he came back in from work, and we were talking about turbulence. It's always a conversation I seem to get onto with pilots, and he said with a glint in his eye, sometimes we just put the old seatbelt signs on if the crew need a little rest for 15-20 minutes because everybody keeps calling them over for stuff.
Yeah.
And we make out there's a bit of turbulence possibly coming up.
Yeah.
I thought, no way. So sometimes that noise isn't always the one to be feared. You could be fine. It's just that the crew want to rest.
Yeah.
Throw that one in
there. Good.
Right, last, it's not really a question, this one. Then it's the end this week. Max Young. Quick message in. Hey, Kevin, Neil, I'm addicted to the podcast. Oh, you can get the cream for that. Your podcast on snakes and spiders in July. That's going back a few months. Funny and entertaining, but Kevin, you are a wimp.
No.
Mind you, you've just spent actually a summer with some pretty vicious-looking creepy crawlies.
I know. Well, yeah, but don't talk about my family like that.
Get your hide down to Aussie, sis.
I rescued a chameleon, don't you know?
You did rescue a chameleon. Don't worry about the serpents. Most of those are in Canberra. I'm not quite so sure he's talking about the insect life now. I'm heading back to wedding photography next month after a hiatus of a few months, planning to use a single X Pro 2 35 1.4 with a backup system. But that's and it's not so much a question, but I just wanted, cheers Max, thank you Max from Australia, Max Young. I just wanted to get your feeling really on effectively a one camera system for a wedding.
Great.
35mm.
I would.
So I'm assuming he's talking about the effective 50 focal length.
Yeah, I would probably step back slightly and use a 23 rather than 35.
Could you do a whole wedding with a 23?
Yeah, I've done it.
Really?
I've done whole weddings with X100s, which are 23mm.
Of course.
Yeah. I very, very often I think about doing that. In fact, I did. It wasn't a whole wedding in the end, but I shot a wedding just, I would say, May time, where I used, I would say 95% of the shots are on 23mm. I just used one camera.
It's funny because we often talk about him. We're a big man crush on him. Philip White, the video guy. He shoots pretty much the entire wedding in video terms, in full frame, 85mm.
Yeah, I think for video you want that kind of cinematic look, don't you?
Could you shoot a wedding with a 56 effective 85?
No, I couldn't because I like to get in close. That's why the 23 is perfect for me. But liberating. How about that? You just blend in. One
camera setup. Max, would you do us a favour when you've shot a few weddings with just the 35, so effective 50mm focal length? Can you send us some links so we can share them with FujiCast listeners and have a look? I'd just really love to see how one camera setup works for a wedding.
Perfect. Well done. Nice one, Max.
Thank you very much.
I'm not a wimp.
No, he's not a wimp. Right.
Really.
If you've liked this week's show, can you help us by doing something that'll go a long way in getting the FujiCast out there, building a community and audience? We want to invest a little bit more time in recording interviews, taking the show on the road like we did a couple of weeks ago, all that kind of stuff. So if you receive, or rather, if you leave a review, you're an absolute star. But if you can actually share in any way, say through a Facebook group you're a member of, Twitter, via your podcast app, you're a complete legend. Couple of seconds just to keep those cogs turning nicely. Thank you for your questions, lifeblood of the show. If you'd like to send yours in, click at fujicast.co.uk. Thank you to the mods for talking to us off the Facebook group, Peter and Steve. You will meet them in the group. Go and say hello to them. Now you know them, go say hi. Big love to our friends at Simpler Straps for letting us give away a camera strap each to our favourite email question of the week. You can go to simpler, simpler.us. Music from Blue Wednesday. Payoffs this week. Kev, it's going to be from Steve Brand for you.
Kevin's Instagram is Kevin Mullins Photography. His website is kevinmullinsphotography.co.uk. Or for all those street workshops, training and everything else Fujifilm, pop over to f16.click. I'm Steve Brand. My Instagram is StevieB Photography and my website is image2image.co.uk.
Thank you, Steve. Would you buy a used car from that man?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, definitely. For me, actually, since we mentioned Australia a couple of moments ago, I know Jeremy featured last week for you, but Jeremy Baker can do mine this week.
Neil's Instagram is Neil James. See his films on YouTube at Neil James Photo. His website is neiljames.com, and you can hear his other photography podcast, which is called Breathe Pictures, wherever you can get your podcasts from. I'm Jeremy Baker. My Instagram is JB102.
I like the way it says Breathe Pictures.
Very nice.
By the way, very quickly as well, X-Weddings, we didn't mention it this week, we should have done.
Yes.
Go to the X-Weddings website.
Yeah, x-weddings.co.uk, Apex Hotel Bath. It's going to be great. I promise, it's going to be great. I'm going to bring some smiles.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.